At its peak, there was a Radio Shack within a few miles of almost every single person in the United States. Over 7,000 stores, more locations than McDonald's. It was everywhere. And then, almost overnight, it was gone. This is the story of Radio Shack, and it is one heck of a ride. The story starts long before most people think. Radio Shack didn't begin as the strip mall staple you probably remember. It was born in 1921 in downtown Boston, Massachusetts. Two brothers, Theodore and Milton Deutschman, opened a tiny shop to sell equipment for the growing world of amateur radio. The name Radio Shack was already a term used by Navy sailors and telegraph operators to describe the small wooden hut on a ship where all the radio equipment was kept. The brothers borrowed that name and it stuck. For nearly 3 decades, the store stayed small, a niche shop for a niche hobby. And honestly, nobody outside of that world paid much attention to it. But then something changed. In 1954, the brothers made a decision that would reshape the entire business. They launched a mail-order catalog. Suddenly, Radio Shack wasn't just reaching the people who walked through their door in Boston. They were reaching hobbyists and tinkerers all across the country. Men who lived out in rural areas, far from any electronic supplier, could now order parts and kits right to their front door. That catalog became legendary. For a lot of guys, flipping through a Radio Shack catalog on a Sunday afternoon was as exciting as a Sears wish book at Christmas. But despite the growing customer base, Radio Shack was struggling financially by the late 1960s. The company had expanded too fast, taken on too much debt, and was barely keeping its head above water. It looked like the story might end there. It didn't. That's where things get interesting. In 1963, a Texas leather goods company called the Tandy Corporation bought Radio Shack. Now, why would a leather company buy an electronics store? That's a fair question. The man behind it was Charles Tandy, and he had a vision that most people thought was completely crazy at the time. Charles Tandy was a salesman at heart. He had grown up in Fort Worth, Texas, helping run his father's leather shop, and he understood retail in a way most people didn't. He looked at Radio Shack and didn't see a failing electronics store. He saw a distribution system. He saw real estate. He saw potential. Tandy streamlined the product line, cut out anything that didn't sell, and pushed Radio Shack to focus on what everyday people actually wanted to buy. He opened stores aggressively, and not in department stores or shopping malls at first. He put them in strip malls, in small towns, in neighborhoods where men could walk in on a Saturday afternoon without making a big event out of it. Just park the car, walk in, and get what you need. By the 1970s, Radio Shack had thousands of locations across America. And here's the thing people forget. At its peak, there was a Radio Shack within a few miles of almost every single person in the United States. That kind of reach was almost unheard of for any retailer at that time. The 1970s and 1980s were the golden years. Radio Shack wasn't just selling batteries and transistors anymore. They were selling CB radios during the CB craze of the mid-70s, and that alone drove enormous business. If you drove a truck, worked in construction, or just wanted to feel connected on the highway, you went to Radio Shack for your CB setup. The store clerks could help you pick the right antenna, explain the channels, and get you up and running the same day. Then came home computers. Radio Shack launched the TRS-80 in 1977, one of the very first mass-market personal computers in American history. It sold out almost immediately. While most people think of Apple or IBM when they think of early home computers, Radio Shack was actually right there at the beginning, selling a machine that regular people could actually afford. Engineers, teachers, small business owners, and curious teenagers all brought home a TRS-80. For many Americans, it was the first computer they ever touched. The workers inside those stores were a different breed too. These weren't just retail clerks looking to collect a paycheck. Many of them were genuine electronics enthusiasts. Ham radio operators, amateur engineers, guys who built their own kits on weekends and actually understood what they were selling. That knowledge made a real difference. You could walk in with a broken television, describe what it was doing wrong, and the guy behind the counter might know exactly what capacitor had gone bad. But here's where the story takes a turn. By the late 1980s and into the 1990s, the retail world was changing fast. big box stores started appearing. Best Buy, Circuit City, CompUSA. These weren't cozy little strip mall shops. They were massive warehouses full of televisions, stereos, and eventually computers, all at lower prices than RadioShack could match. Where RadioShack had once been the only game in town, suddenly it was surrounded by competition it couldn't outrun. And then the internet arrived. And after that, everything changed forever. Customers who once had no choice but to drive to RadioShack for a specific connector or a single battery could now order it online and have it at their door in days. The specialized knowledge that RadioShack clerks offered was suddenly available for free on internet forums and YouTube tutorials. The very thing that made RadioShack special, its expertise and its inventory of hard-to-find parts, was being replaced by something faster and cheaper. RadioShack tried to adapt. They pushed cell phones. They tried to become a wireless carrier hub. They rebranded themselves as The Shack for a brief and deeply unpopular period. They partnered with Sprint. They launched new product lines, but nothing stuck. Each attempt felt like a company that had lost the plot of its own story. In 2015, RadioShack filed for bankruptcy for the first time. It was a gut punch for anyone who remembered what the store had meant. A second bankruptcy followed in 2017. Thousands of stores closed their doors. The employees, many of whom had worked there for years, packed up and walked out for the last time. What was left was sold off and pieced apart. The RadioShack name still exists today in a limited form online, but it carries almost nothing of what made the original special. The stores are gone. The catalogs are gone. The smell of solder and plastic is gone. What remains is the memory. The memory of a Saturday morning trip with your dad to pick up parts for a science fair project. The memory of a clerk who actually knew what a 555 timer chip was and could tell you exactly how to use it. The memory of flipping through that catalog on a winter evening, circling everything you wanted to build someday. RadioShack wasn't just a store. It was a place where curiosity was welcome, where tinkering was respected, where the guy behind the counter treated you like you were serious, because you were. And that kind of place, once it's gone, doesn't come back. If you grew up going to RadioShack, or if you worked there, or if you still have one of those old catalogs sitting in a box somewhere, drop a comment below. And if you enjoy videos about the companies, the factories, and the people that shaped American life, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because our next one is already in the works. And trust me, you are really going to want to be there for it.